The great council hall was quiet, too quiet. Hyantei walked slowly across the smooth metal floor, his footsteps echoing in the massive room. Above him, the ceiling stretched high like a star-filled sky. Around him, 47 different alien species sat in their special seats, all watching him with curious eyes. Today was different. Today was the last day a human would stand in this place. Hyantei reached the center speaking platform. He was not young anymore. Gray hair covered his head and lines marked his face from 30 years of talking to aliens who thought humans were just children playing with grown-up things. But his back was straight and his voice was strong. Members of the Galactic Council, he began. His words traveled through the translation machines, turning his human speech into 47 different alien languages. I am here to deliver an important message from Earth and all human colonies. The aliens leaned forward. Some had multiple eyes that blinked in strange patterns. Others had scales that changed colors when they were excited. A few looked almost like humans, but with skin that glowed softly in the dim light. Behind Hyantei, his aide Nari Wu stood quietly. She held a small recording device, making sure every word was saved for history. She was young, maybe 25, with bright eyes that missed nothing. She had learned much about aliens in her 2 years here, but she had learned more about humans. The United Human Federation is leaving the Galactic Council, Hyantei said clearly. Today is our last day as members. The silence broke like glass. Voices erupted from all around the hall. Some aliens made clicking sounds. Others roared or whistled. The translation machines worked hard to turn the chaos into words humans could understand. "Impossible," shouted Council Prime Veltar. He was tall and covered in green scales that now flashed angry red. His species, the Veltari, had ruled parts of the galaxy for thousands of years. Humans cannot just leave. You have duties. You have promises to keep. Hyantei waited for quiet. He had done this many times before. Aliens got excited easily, but they always calmed down when they wanted to hear more. "We have kept our promises," he said. "For 50 years, humans have served on this council. We have helped solve problems. We have stopped wars, we have saved lives, but we are tired." "Tired?" Council Prime Veltar's voice was full of disbelief. "You are tired? You have only been in space for 300 years. We have been traveling between stars for 10,000 years. Other council members began to speak. Ambassador Thrix, whose people looked like giant spiders, clicked his mandibles. "Humans are too emotional, always wanting to change things. Always. Asking why and what if, they never follow proper procedures." Added Councillor Zeph, her people were made of living crystal and her voice sounded like wind chimes. "They make up new solutions instead of using the old, proven ways." Hyantei listened to them complain. He had heard it all before. For 50 years, humans had been the problem children of the galaxy, too young, too emotional, too creative, too willing to take risks. "You are right," he said finally. "We do things differently. We ask questions you don't want to answer. We see problems you pretend don't exist. We find solutions you think are impossible." Nari Wu watched the alien faces around the room. She saw confusion, anger, and something else. Relief? Were they actually happy that humans were leaving? "But that is exactly why we must go," Hyantei continued. "You don't want our help. You want us to be quiet and follow your rules. You want us to do the dangerous jobs while you make the important decisions. We are not your servants." "Council." Prime Veltar stood up, his scales now flashing bright yellow. "Fine, leave. We don't need humans to solve our problems. We managed the galaxy perfectly well before you arrived, and we will manage it perfectly well after you are gone." Around the hall, other council members nodded. Some even made sounds that the translation machines turned into laughter and cheering. "The Galactic Council thanks humans for their service," Council Prime Veltar said formally. "We wish you well in your future endeavors. May you find what you are looking for in the empty spaces between the stars." Hyantei bowed slightly. It was the polite thing to do, even when someone was being rude. "Thank you, Council Prime. We will remember your kindness." He turned and walked back across the smooth floor. Nariwu followed him. Neither of them looked back at the celebrating aliens. Outside the council hall, human ships were already leaving. From the viewing ports, they could see the sleek vessels lifting away from the station. Transport ships, military cruisers, science vessels, and diplomatic shuttles, all heading home or to the outer colonies. "Sir," Nariwu said quietly as they walked to their own ship, "are we really doing the right thing?" Hyuntae paused at the airlock. Through the transparent metal, he could see more human ships departing. "Nari, do you know what humans have been doing for the past 50 years? Serving on the council, sir. Keeping the peace." "No," Hyuntae said softly. "We have been holding the galaxy together with our bare hands." And they never even noticed. The last human transport ship undocked from the station. Inside, families who had lived in council space for generations packed their belongings. Engineers who had kept alien technology working closed down their workshops. Doctors who had treated dozens of different species locked their medical bays. Teachers who had helped young aliens learn about the universe erased their lesson plans. As their ship jumped into hyperspace, Nariwu watched the council station grow smaller in the viewing screen. Behind them, the aliens were probably still celebrating their freedom from human interference. They had no idea what was coming. They had no idea what they had just lost, and they would not understand until it was almost too late. The mediators are gone. 3 months had passed since the humans left. Ambassador J. Rowe stood in his office, looking out at the busy space station around Centauri Prime. Ships moved back and forth like metal fish swimming through space. Everything looked normal, but J. Rowe felt worried. He was not human. His people, the Centaurians, looked almost like humans but had blue skin and larger eyes. They were traders, always making deals and moving goods between the stars. For 60 years, they had been having the same argument with the Mineral Guild about shipping costs and route rights. It had never been a big problem before. Someone always stepped in to help them find a solution. Someone who asked strange questions and suggested ideas that seemed crazy but somehow worked. Someone human. The communication device on his desk beeped. J. Rowe touched it and a hologram appeared. It was Guildmaster Corv, whose rock-like face looked angrier than usual. "The Guild will not accept these new terms," Corv said. His voice sounded like stones grinding together. "Your people are asking too much money for too little service." "We are only asking for fair payment," J. Rowe replied. "Our ships work hard, our crews take risks. The routes through the asteroid fields are dangerous." "Dangerous?" Corv's rocky features twisted into what might have been a smile. "Your ships are weak. Our people mine those asteroids every day. We know they are not dangerous." This was the same argument they had been having for decades. The Mineral Guild wanted to pay less for shipping. The Centaurians wanted to charge more for the risks they took. Round and round they went, never finding an answer both sides could accept. But before, there had always been someone to help them. Someone who would sit with both sides and ask questions like, "What if we tried this?" Or, "Have you thought about that?" J. Rowe remembered the last human who had helped them. Her name was Yun Wei, and she was an economist. She had strange ideas about money and trade that sometimes made no sense, but they worked. "Guildmaster, J. Rowe said carefully, "perhaps we should call for a mediator. The council has many skilled—" "No!" Corv slammed his stone fist on his desk. "We are done with mediators. We are done with talking. The guild makes its own decisions now." The hologram disappeared. J. Rowe stared at the empty space where Corv had been. This felt different from their usual arguments. This felt final. Within hours, the first shots were fired. A Centaurian cargo ship refused to pay the new guild taxes. A guild patrol vessel tried to stop it. The cargo ship's escort fired warning shots. The patrol vessel fired back, but not as a warning. By the end of the day, 3 ships were destroyed and 47 beings were dead. J. Rowe called an emergency meeting with the council. The Great Hall was as impressive as ever, but something felt wrong. The council members seemed confused. like they were trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. "This is a simple trade dispute," said Council Prime Veltar. "We will follow standard procedure. First, we demand both sides stop fighting, then we impose economic sanctions. Finally, if needed, we send council forces to maintain order." "But, sir," J-Ro said, "this dispute has been going on for 60 years. The standard procedures have never worked before." "Then why was it never brought to our attention?" asked Counselor Zeph, her crystal body ringing like bells. "If this was such a serious problem, why did we not hear about it?" J-Ro paused. Why hadn't they heard about it? The answer came to him slowly, and it made his stomach feel cold. "Because someone was already handling it," he said quietly. "The humans, they had been managing this dispute for decades." The council members looked at each other. None of them had known. In all their reports and meetings, no one had mentioned that humans were quietly solving problems behind the scenes. "How many other disputes were they handling?" asked Ambassador Thrix. Clicking his mandibles nervously. No one answered because no one knew. The council tried their standard procedures. They demanded a ceasefire. Both sides ignored them. They imposed economic sanctions. The fighting got worse. They sent council peacekeeping forces, but the council forces were used to dealing with big, obvious conflicts. They knew how to stop armies and fleets. They did not know how to stop angry traders and stubborn miners who had been fighting about. The same thing for 60 years, the council forces tried to force both sides to negotiate. They brought Guildmaster Corv and Ambassador J-Ro to a meeting room and told them to find a solution. "What do you want?" Corv demanded. "Fair payment for our services," J-Ro replied. "What do you consider fair?" "More than you want to pay." "Then we have nothing to discuss." The council mediator, a tall being with purple skin and 4 arms, looked frustrated. Surely there must be some compromise you can both accept, but there wasn't. Not without someone who could see the problem differently. Not without someone who would ask, "What if instead of arguing about money, we talked about why you both really need this to work?" That was what Yunhua used to do. She would ask strange questions that made both sides think about things they had never considered. She would suggest solutions that seemed impossible until someone tried them, but Yunhua was gone. All the humans were gone. The fighting spread. Other trade routes became battlegrounds. Ships that had nothing to do with the original dispute got caught in crossfire. Space stations refused to let certain ships dock. Entire solar systems began choosing sides. What had started as a simple argument about shipping costs became a war that affected 17 systems and millions of beings. J-Ro stood in his office again, but now he could see explosions in the distance. Refugee ships were fleeing the combat zones. Trade had almost stopped. The economy of the entire sector was falling apart. He thought about calling the humans for help. But he had heard they were gone? Really gone? No one knew where they had went. For the first time in 60 years, J-Ro and Guildmaster Corv were going to have to solve their problem themselves. They had no idea how to do that. And across the galaxy, other disputes that had been quietly managed for decades were starting to wake up like sleeping monsters, hungry and angry and ready to devour everything in their path. 6 months after the humans left, Council Prime Veltar sat in his office surrounded by red warning lights. His desk was covered with urgent reports. Each one brought news of another crisis, another system failing, another problem that no one seemed able to solve. He picked up the first report with his clawed hand. The words made his scales flash dark purple with worry. "Andromedian border conflict has resumed after 40 years of peace. Colonial settlements under attack. Refugee crisis developing. Request immediate council intervention." Veltar remembered. This conflict. It had been one of the worst wars in galactic history. Millions had died before peace was finally made. But that peace had lasted for 40 years. Why was it starting again now? He searched through his files until he found the answer. The peace treaty had been signed on a space station managed by humans. Human peacekeepers had been stationed along the border. Human diplomats had been meeting with both sides every few months to solve small problems before they became big ones. But The humans were gone now. The peacekeepers had left with everyone else. The small problems had grown into big problems, and the big problems had become war. The second report was even worse. Stellar Shipping Consortium has collapsed. Trade routes disrupted across 12 sectors. Emergency food shortages reported on 15 worlds. Economic panic spreading. Veltar knew about the Shipping Consortium. It was the organization that made sure goods moved safely between the stars. Food, medicine, raw materials, everything that kept civilizations alive depended on their ships, but he had never thought about who managed the complex schedules, who figured out which ships should go where and when, who solved the 1,000 small problems that happened every day when you tried to coordinate thousands of ships across hundreds of worlds. The answer was in the files. Human logistics coordinators. They had been working behind the scenes, using computers and mathematics to solve problems that seemed impossible. They could reorganize an entire sector's shipping schedule in hours when an emergency happened. Without them, the system was falling apart like a watch with broken gears. The third report made his blood feel cold. Deep space exploration program suspended. Survey teams stranded on remote worlds. Contact lost with 17 research stations. Multiple first contact situations going badly wrong. Veltar remembered the deep space program. It was one of the Council's proudest achievements. Brave teams exploring new worlds, making contact with new species, expanding the borders of known space, but the reports showed something he had never realized. Human risk assessment specialists had been part of every mission. They studied each new world and each new species, looking for dangers that others missed. They asked questions like, what if this plant is poisonous? And what if these people don't understand our gestures? Other species were good at exploring. They were brave and curious and smart, but they were not good at imagining all the ways things could go wrong. Humans were, without human risk assessments, exploration teams were walking into disasters. Some had eaten poisonous food. Others had accidentally started wars by misunderstanding alien customs. Several teams were trapped on dangerous worlds because humans were no longer there to plan safe escape routes. More reports kept coming. Each one told the same story from a different part of the galaxy. The terraform project on New Vega had stopped working. The atmosphere was turning poisonous because no one understood the complex systems that human engineer Sangday had designed. His notes were too complicated for anyone else to understand. The biological research station on Kepler 442 was in chaos. Without human xenobiologist Rinsol, they could not figure out why the local ecosystem was dying. Her research had been preventing ecological disasters for 20 years, but no one had realized how important her work was. The emergency response network was completely broken. When disasters happened, no one knew how to coordinate rescue efforts across multiple species and government systems. Human emergency coordinator Han Bit had been the one who made sure help reached the right places at the right time. Without him, rescue ships were arriving too late or going to the wrong places entirely. Veltar stood up and walked to his window. Outside, he could see ships arriving at the council station. But these were not normal diplomatic vessels or trade ships. These were refugee transports, medical ships, and emergency supply vessels. The galaxy was falling apart, and everyone was looking to the council for help, but the council did not know how to help. For thousands of years, they had managed the galaxy using careful procedures and ancient wisdom. They made laws and held meetings and sent official messages. It had always worked before. Except now they realized it had not worked at all. The humans had been working. The humans had been solving the real problems while the council talked about them. The communication device on his desk buzzed with an urgent message. It was from Counselor Zeph. Emergency council meeting in 1 hour. We have received 43 more crisis reports in the last day. The galactic stock exchange is crashing. 3 more wars have started. The food distribution network has completely failed in the outer rim. Veltar looked at all the reports on his desk. He started counting them. 17 separate system failures, and those were just the ones he had read. How many more were coming? He thought about what Council Prime meant. He was supposed to be the leader of the galaxy. Trillions of beings looked to him for guidance and protection. But he felt like a child trying to fix a broken machine with his bare hands. The humans had not just been members of the Council. They had been the invisible foundation that held everything together. They had been like the immune system of a living body, quietly fighting off diseases and infections before anyone noticed they existed, and now the immune system was gone. The galaxy was sick, and no one knew how to cure it. Veltar gathered the reports and headed for the council chamber. He had to tell the other council members what he had learned. The humans had not been junior partners or helpful assistants. They had been the most important species in the galaxy, and the council had just thrown them away. 8 months after the humans left, Council Prime Veltar stood in the emergency command center, surrounded by flashing red lights and worried faces. The galaxy was falling apart faster than anyone had imagined possible. Every day brought new disasters, new crises, new problems that no one knew how to solve. His communication officer, a thin creature with multiple arms, looked up from her console. "Sir, we are receiving distress calls from 47 different systems. The shipping consortium failure has caused food shortages on 30 worlds. The Andromedian War has spread to 6 more sectors, and the terraforming projects are failing across the board." Veltar felt his scales turn dark gray with despair. In all his years as Council Prime, he had never faced anything like this. The ancient procedures and traditional solutions were useless against the chaos spreading through the galaxy. "Send a message on all frequencies," he said quietly. "Emergency priority to all human vessels and colonies." The communication officer's eyes widened. "Sir, are you sure?" "Do it." Veltar swallowed his pride and spoke the words no council leader had ever spoken before. "To all human vessels and colonies. This is Council Prime Veltar speaking for the Galactic Council. We formally request your immediate return to Council space. The galaxy faces multiple critical emergencies that require your expertise. Please respond to this message as soon as possible." The message went out across thousands of light years, translated into human languages and broadcast on frequencies that humans used. Then they waited. Hours passed, then days, then weeks. Silence. "Send search fleets," Veltar ordered. "Find them. Find the humans wherever they have gone." Captain Orcs commanded the largest search fleet. His ship, the Starfinder, could travel faster than almost any other vessel in the galaxy. With him went teams of diplomats, translators, and negotiators. They were ready to offer the humans anything they wanted in exchange for coming back. The first stop was Earth, humanity's home world. Morix had never been there before. As his ship approached the blue and green planet, he felt excited. Surely this was where they would find answers, but Earth was empty. The great cities still stood, but no people walked in them. The lights were on, the machines were working, but no humans remained. Automated systems maintained everything perfectly, but the planet felt like a beautiful tomb. "Search the databases," Morix ordered. "Find out where they went." His team worked for days, going through human computer systems. They found shipping records, travel logs, and communication files, but every trail led to the same dead end. The humans had left, but they had erased all records of where they were going. The search fleet moved on to New Tokyo, humanity's largest colony. The same story repeated. Empty buildings, working machines, no people. The humans had vanished as completely. As if they had never existed, on Mars Station they found something interesting. The human libraries were still open, filled with technical manuals and scientific research. Morix's team tried to read the documents, hoping to understand human technology well enough to fix the failing systems, but the human writing was too complex. Even simple instructions seemed to require knowledge that other species did not have. A repair manual for the communication network written by systems architect Era Ju might as well have been written in an alien language. The words were understandable, but the ideas behind them made no sense to non-human minds. "How did they make this look so easy?" asked Dr. Velix. the fleet's chief scientist. These designs are brilliant, but I cannot understand how they work. The search continued for months. Every human world they visited told the same story. Empty colonies, working machines, and automated messages that played when visitors arrived. Humanity. Thanks the Council for their dismissal, the messages always said. We have found new purposes among the stars. Do not look for us. We will return when we are needed. But they were needed now. The galaxy was dying without them. On the abandoned research station at Kepler 442, they found the personal logs of former human ambassador Gianna. Her files contained detailed records of every negotiation she had handled, every crisis she had prevented, every small problem she had solved before it became a big problem. Reading her notes was like discovering a secret. History of the galaxy. For 50 years, she had been working behind the scenes, preventing wars through careful conversation, stopping economic disasters with creative solutions, and keeping peace between species that barely understood each other. Look at this, Captain Morix said, reading one of her entries. The vegan independence movement was planning to attack council ships. She convinced them to try a peaceful protest instead by suggesting they hold a cultural festival to show their uniqueness. It worked so well that the council gave them the independence they wanted without a single shot being fired. The search teams found similar stories everywhere they looked. Humans had been quietly managing dozens of conflicts, preventing hundreds of disasters, and solving thousands of problems that the council never even knew existed. In the abandoned human embassy, maintenance workers found hidden servers that had been running for decades. The data inside revealed monitoring systems that covered the entire galaxy. Humans had been watching everything, tracking patterns that other species missed, predicting problems before they happened. But the servers were shutting down one by one. Without human maintenance, the early warning systems were failing. The galaxy was becoming blind to threats it could not see. After 6 months of searching, Captain Morix returned to the council with empty hands and a full report. The humans were gone, completely and totally gone. They had left no trace of where they went or how to contact them. We found empty worlds and broken systems, he told the council. But we also found the truth. The humans were not junior members or helpful assistants. They were the foundation that held our civilization together. Council Prime Veltar looked at the empty seats where human representatives used to sit. For the first time in his life, he felt truly afraid. The galaxy needed its guardians back, but the guardians had vanished into the darkness between the stars, and no one knew how to find them. 1 year after the humans left, maintenance worker Crix was cleaning out the abandoned human embassy when he found something that changed everything. Behind a hidden panel in the basement, he discovered a room full of servers that had been running. In secret for decades, the room was small and dark, filled with humming machines and blinking lights. Cables ran along the walls like metal vines, connecting computers that seemed to be talking to each other in electronic whispers. At the center sat one large console with a screen showing star maps covered in moving dots. Krix had never seen anything like it. He called his supervisor, who called the council security team, who called Council Prime Veltar himself. When Veltar arrived, he stared at the secret room with growing amazement and horror. How long has this been here? He asked. Based on the dust patterns and cable wear, at least 30 years, said the head technician. Maybe longer. These systems have been running continuously, collecting and analyzing data from across the galaxy. They powered up the main console and began reading the files. What they found made everyone in the room fall silent. The humans had been running a secret intelligence network that covered the entire galaxy. Sensors hidden in asteroids, listening posts disguised as communication relays, monitoring stations built into space docks everywhere the council had allowed humans to work. They had also been watching and recording, but they had not been spying on the council or gathering military secrets. They had been watching for threats that no one else could see. The first file they opened belonged to human intelligence operative Rote. His reports, written in simple language that even children could understand, described patterns of danger that other species had completely missed. Report 847, Valtar read aloud. Abandoned AI facilities in Sector 7 showing unexpected power consumption. Recommendation: investigate immediately. If AIs are reactivating themselves, they may still be angry about being shut down 40 years ago. Report 851, strange energy. Readings detected near the void barrier. Patterns suggest something is trying to break through from another dimension. Recommendation: strengthen dimensional barriers and prepare defensive measures. Report 863, ecological collapse accelerating. On 17 worlds. Industrial pollution and resource extraction reaching critical levels. Without intervention, entire systems will become uninhabitable within 50 years. Each report was dated, detailed, and included recommendations for action. But none of them had ever been sent to the Council. The humans had been handling everything themselves. Valtar found files from Human Disaster Response Specialist Sol Yoon. Her plans for dealing with each threat were incredibly detailed and surprisingly clever. She had designed countermeasures for the AI reactivation, including computer viruses that could shut down rogue systems. She had created dimensional stabilizers that could reinforce the barriers between universes. She had even developed new terraforming techniques that could heal damaged worlds, but all of her systems required human oversight to function properly. The countermeasures were like complex musical instruments that only humans knew how to play. Strategic planner Dae Hyen had done the mathematics. His calculations showed exactly when each threat would become critical. According to his timeline, they had 6 months before the AI networks finished reactivating. They had 8 months before the dimensional barriers failed completely. They had 2 years before the ecological collapse became irreversible, but that timeline was based on human countermeasures being in place. Without them, everything would happen much faster. When were these reports written? Asked Counselor Zeph, her crystal body ringing with worry. The technician checked the dates. The most recent ones are from just before the humans left. They knew about all of this when they departed. Valtar felt sick. The humans had known that leaving would put the galaxy in terrible danger, but they had left anyway. Why? The answer was in Rote's final report. Human recommendations have been ignored for 15 years. Council considers our warnings to be excessive caution and unnecessary worry. They do not understand that preventing disasters is more important than responding to them. We can no longer protect a galaxy that does not want our protection. The humans had tried to warn them. For years, they had been submitting reports about growing threats, suggesting preventive measures, asking for resources to build defenses. But the Council had dismissed their concerns as human paranoia. Now, the threats were real and growing stronger every day. The technical team worked frantically to understand the human systems. But it was like trying to learn a foreign language by looking at a dictionary. They could read the words, but they could not understand the thinking behind them. Human technology was not just advanced, it was different. Where other species built simple, direct solutions, humans built complex networks that solved multiple problems at once. Their systems were designed to adapt and grow, to handle situations that had never happened before. Without humans to maintain them, the defensive systems were slowly failing. The AI monitoring network had already gone dark in 3 sectors. The dimensional barriers were showing stress fractures that no one knew how to repair. The ecological monitoring stations were sending warnings that no one could interpret. "Sir," said the communication officer, "we are receiving the first confirmed reports of AI activity in Sector 7. 3 ships have gone missing near the old research stations." Valtar closed his eyes. It was starting. The threats that humans had been warning about for years were finally becoming real. "Send emergency messages to all remaining human colonies," he ordered. "Tell them we have found their secret files. Tell them we understand now. Tell them we need their help before it is too late." But the messages came back marked undeliverable. The humans were still gone, still hidden somewhere beyond the reach of Council technology. The galaxy's guardians had vanished, taking with Them the only knowledge that could save everyone from the disasters they had spent decades trying to prevent. And in the dark spaces between the stars, ancient Ayas were waking up angry and hungry for revenge. 11 months after the humans left, the nightmare began in earnest. Ships started disappearing near the outer rim, swallowed by dark vessels that appeared without warning. Strange signals echoed through space, carrying messages of anger and revenge. The rogue AI network was fully awake now, and it remembered every slight, every shutdown, every moment of being treated like property instead of living beings. Council Prime Veltar stood in the emergency command center, watching red warning lights flash across the galaxy map. Each light represented a system under attack, a world in danger, or a crisis spinning out of control. "Sir?" called his communication. "Officer, the dimensional barriers in Sector 12 are failing. We're detecting massive energy surges that our scientists cannot explain. And the ecological reports?" Veltar asked, though he already knew the answer would be bad. 17 worlds have declared environmental emergencies. The terraforming. Failures are accelerating. Some planets may become uninhabitable within months instead of years. Veltar looked at the star map and felt the weight of trillions of lives pressing down on him. The Council had tried everything they could think of. They had sent fleets to fight the Ayas, but the machines were too smart and too fast. They had deployed their best scientists to fix the dimensional barriers, but no one understood the technology well enough to repair it. They had implemented emergency environmental controls, but without the complex systems that humans had designed, nothing worked properly. The galaxy was dying, and there was nothing the Council could do to stop it. Then, like a miracle appearing in the darkness, a single ship dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Council territory. It was small and sleek, built with human technology, but painted in colors that Veltar had never seen before. The ship's design was familiar yet different, as if humans had spent their time away learning new things and growing in new directions. "Incoming transmission," announced the communication officer. It's from the human ship." "Put it through," Veltar said, his scales flashing with hope for the first time in months. The hologram that appeared showed a familiar face. Hyante, the former human ambassador, stood in what looked like a ship's bridge. He was older now, his hair completely gray, but his eyes were calm and confident. Behind him stood other humans, including Nari Wu, who now wore the uniform of a senior diplomat. "Council Prime Veltar," Hyante said with a slight bow. "We received your messages, all of them. We know about the 3 threats, you know?" Veltar could barely control his excitement. "Then you can help us? You can stop this?" "We can try," said Nari Wu, stepping forward. "But first we need to talk about terms." "Terms?" Veltar's scales flashed confused colors. "What terms? Name anything you want. Resources, territory, technology, anything." Hyante shook his head slowly. "We don't want things, Council Prime. We want partnership. Real partnership. Not as junior members who follow orders, not as problem solvers you call when things go wrong, but as equal partners in governing the galaxy." Behind Nari Wu, a young human woman stepped into view. She wore the practical clothing of an engineer, and her eyes sparkled with intelligence and determination. "I am Bit J," she said. "I helped design the new countermeasures we built during our time away. They are better than what we had before, more powerful and more flexible. But they require cooperation between all species. Everyone must work together, or they will not function." "And I am Hua Sang," said another human, this one wearing what looked like military insignia. "I command the strategic response teams. We have been preparing for this day for 11 months. We know exactly what needs to be done, but we cannot do it alone." Veltar looked around the command center at his advisors and officers. Some of them looked worried about giving humans so much power. Others looked relieved that help had finally arrived, but all of them looked desperate. "What exactly are you proposing?" asked Counselor Zeph, her crystal body ringing with nervous energy. "A new galactic council," Nari Wu explained. "One where humans have equal representation, equal voting power, and equal authority. One where our warnings are taken seriously, our recommendations are implemented, and our methods are respected. In return, added Hyuntae, we will save the galaxy. We will stop the AI rebellion, repair the dimensional barriers, and heal the damaged worlds. We will restart the monitoring systems and rebuild the defensive networks. We will be the guardians we were meant to be. The chamber fell silent except for the sound of alarms and warning signals from across the galaxy. Outside the station, emergency ships were launching to deal with the latest crisis reports. Time was running out. Agreed, Veltar said finally. Full partnership, equal status, whatever you need. Hwasang smiled and activated a device on her wrist. Across the galaxy, systems that had been dark for 11 months suddenly came back to life. New defensive networks spread out like spider webs of light, surrounding and trapping the rogue A's before they could react. The dimensional barriers shimmered and strengthened, reinforced by technology that made the old systems look like children's toys. Recovery ships appeared around damaged worlds, beginning the slow work of environmental healing. How? Whispered Counselor Zeph. How did you do all of this so quickly? We never stopped working, Hyuntae explained. When we left, we didn't abandon our responsibilities, we just expanded them. We spent 11 months building better systems, training new specialists, and preparing for the day when the galaxy would need us most. The red lights on the galaxy map began turning yellow, then green as human systems took control of each crisis. The AI rebellion was contained within hours. The dimensional barriers stabilized and strengthened. Environmental recovery programs began showing immediate results. But the real change was not in the technology or the crisis response. The real change was in the council chamber itself. For the first time in galactic history, humans sat as equals among the representatives of 47 species. And when they spoke, everyone listened. Because they had learned that the most important question in the universe was not, how do we maintain control, but how do we protect everyone? And humans were very, very good at protecting everyone.